Hi-ho, hi-ho. It's off to the movies we go with Michael Cook. He's going to review Snow White, hence my alto singing voice, also Alto Nights.
All righty, well, that's a good introduction.
Okay.
Let's start off with the live-action version of the Disney classic Snow White. This stars Rachel Zegler as Snow White. We all know the basic story of Snow White. She is at the beginning of the film. She is a young princess. She has two parents. Sadly, her mother dies at the very beginning, and then Gal Gadot eventually becomes her stepmother. As we know from the story, her father dies or disappears, and Gal Gadot becomes the evil queen of the empire and banishes Snow White to the scullery to work as a maid and cleaning and so on and so forth. Of course, she has the magic mirror that tells her she's the fairest of them all, until one day says that, oh, by the way, Snow White is more fair than you, and then sets off the story where she tries to kill Snow White or have Snow White killed, and Snow White goes off into the forest and meets the seven dwarfs, and of course there is a handsome young man that she meets as part of the love story. Again, I'm not telling anybody anything you don't already.
Spoiler alert!
Exactly. You should already know the storyline by now, because the original Disney classic came out, I think, in 1937. So it's been around a while. We all know
before I was born.
Exactly, all the stories. So my thoughts on the film is, good gosh, this is a bland movie. You know, there's new songs added to it, and they just reek of the dreams of a mediocre theater kid. They don't work. They have CGI. The seven dwarves are all CGI, and they just are just too awkward looking and doesn't feel right either. I didn't think Rachel Zegler was particularly impressed. She's got a great singing voice, but as a presence, I wasn't particularly pleased. And then with Gal Gadot's part, you know, sometimes a movie can be saved by a good villain.
Yeah,
she was not a particularly interesting villain. It's kind of slow pacing. I mean, yes, visually it looks somewhat impressive, but you know, for a story that this iconic, you had to get it right. It had to be full of magic, and this one failed. I had to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
There's a long line of people over there ready to string you up after that. It's just a lot of parents over there.
I'll say, but one last thing I'll say, this was not made for me. I will admit that.
Okay.
This is made for kids, so maybe the kids have a better feeling for it, but as an adult,
maybe they can give it a 6 3/4.
Yeah, exactly, just maybe.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Alto Nights, also premiering at theaters near you today. It's based on the true story of Frank Costello and Vito Genovese, two gangsters in the 1950s New York. Here, at the beginning of the film, Frank Costello, who's played by Robert De Niro, is almost assassinated by his rival's gang, Vito Genovese. Now, the dynamic, though, is both of these characters are played by De Niro. He plays both of them.
I'm about to say, that looks like De Niro.
Exactly. And all the while, there's a big power struggle between these two. Vito Genovese, one with a hat. He had fled to Italy for some years to try to get away from a murder charge, while Frank Costello stayed and took over the family. Vito comes back from Italy and he wants everything back. And of course, there's a power struggle. Frank Costello is trying to be legitimate and kind of be a man in society. Vito Genovese knows he's a gangster and just wants to do gangster stuff. And so these two men are at loggerheads at various times throughout the films, with each one, frankly, trying to kill the other in various form or fashions. So on the one hand, you have De Niro, one of our best actors, playing both these roles. But as I watched this film, I thought, why did they do this? They should have had another actor play one of the other gangsters, because for me it was Robert De Niro in prosthetics. It was one old Italian American playing another old Italian American. It just got confusing, and then this movie is just full of exposition of talking and talking and talking, and cliches and cliche on top of each other. You know, if you've seen Goodfellas or The Godfather, any of these other classic gangster movies, you've seen this movie done better. This one is just, just not particularly interesting. I was bored too many times. I have to give this film a 5 out of 10.
Well, I was going to wonder, if he's nominated for Best Actor, which character would he be nominated for? But obviously, after your review, that's not going to be an issue.
Then you wonder, did he get double the paycheck? Is that why he did both roles?
What do you think?
I don't. Maybe so.
He might have. All right. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you.